Welcome to Catanet TV. We're very pleased to have with us today the Senior Vice President of Celestica, Mike Andrade. And Mike, we've spoken at some length about innovation. I know you're passionate about innovation in Canada. And often you refer to the electronic value chain. Now, what is that and why is that important?
I think we've lost track in Canada, frankly, about how things are made on many fronts. But on electronic products, I think it's particularly important and relevant for us. So the concept of the value chain is everything from the intellectual property creation to the delivery and support of an electronic product. And in this country, and frankly any Western nation now, we are almost reliant upon electronics in a way that we understand in some cases when we look at our BlackBerry, and in cases, other cases where it's invisible to us. Retail, banking systems, our phone systems now are completely reliant upon electronics, and a value chain that is spread all over the world with thousands of parts and being built in many other parts of the world, coming together to do things that are now of a critical nature to our everyday life, and people have lost track about how and where those things are done.
So we're really not competitive in that respect.
Well, I mean, I think we were not, but I think the issue is it's less an issue that people even thought about it. I think it's just become kind of a pervasive thing that people say, I like my cheap consumer electronics, or I like my cheap computer. I don't really care where it's made, and that doesn't matter if it's a computer or a laptop or something like that. But I would submit that it starts to matter when your air traffic control system, your banking system, your retail system is running on that, and your underpinning of your society is based on that. If we divorce ourselves from an understanding of the value chain that got those things to us, that we would become so dependent on, I think that becomes an issue.
Very important part of the innovation nation. Now, one thing that I've had a passion for, and certainly you've seen our board of directors, Terry Matthews, talk about this commercialization gap in Canada. Why do we have that gap?
Well, I mean, that's a question a lot of people have asked, so I'm not going to have the categoric answer on that. But my history is a bit of, I came from, I worked at IBM right out of university. And I think part of the problem is that we have a branch plant mentality here in Canada, that the decisions around the creation of products, the marketing of products, the real important financial and business decisions are often made elsewhere. And so we tend to look to other people to make important decisions about how we're going to commercialize products, where we're going to sell them, how we're going to sell them, what we're going to make, those sort of things. And I don't think that's the entire problem, but I do think that that's part of it. And when I have a dialogue with people in Canada about competition, I've lived in other places of the world and I've been in this industry for 25 years, the dialogue in Canada is different than the dialogue we have in other countries. In the other countries, I come up with a good idea, and everyone's saying, well, why didn't that idea come up? That can't, geez, how do we make that idea happen? Here, we come up with a good idea, and it's almost like we say, well, we can't make this work without either Big Brother in the U.S. or government helping us or something like that. So that seems to be one of the challenges. I think the other thing you hear frequently is venture capital, that there is a dearth of venture capital to kind of get us over that valley of death between the idea and the angel funding and that. So I think that's probably some truth to that. I think the other thing, and maybe this is related to the idea that we have a branch plant mentality, is that we don't have a sufficient number of worldwide global scale executives, people who have those sort of experiences, because which is really required to get you over from I got a great idea, I got a small company, to running a larger company and all that. So I think that might be another piece. I don't really buy into the idea that it's a lack of ideas and entrepreneurialism. I think there's sufficient of that. And I think the final thing, and this is where I probably, our spin on it as Celestica being an electronic supply chain company, is that frankly in this day and age, we talked about there's a supply chain that gets products to the marketplace. And it's like a tree falling in the forest. If no one's there to see it, it doesn't matter. So if your product can't get out in sufficient volume to people who actually need it at the right time in a marketplace where the product life cycle is 6 months or less, and so if you're not hitting the market at the right time, it's kind of useless to have a product. So the supply chain, about linking together a supply chain that now frankly is global. The components are not made just in Canada, and the design isn't all in Canada. So linking together this supply chain is an equally critical part as having the ideas, having the capital, having the management. You need to have the supply chain expertise to get there, and frankly Canada doesn't have that, or is losing what it does have.
Well, you've just given us a formula for bridging the gap. Perhaps you can give some insight into the ecosystem, and I know one of your interests is an electronic leadership alliance that would coalesce some of the resources to be successful. So tell us a bit about ecosystem and this alliance that we've been discussing.
Well, I mean, I've often thought the electronics industry is probably almost the perfect economic good. Software and hardware is almost the perfect economic good, and it's a very low weight / no weight when it comes to software. There's very few duties, barriers, and tariffs that really prevent it from moving around the world. And as such, it's become the almost perfect globally traded product. And the other thing that's a truism in electronics is that scale wins, cost wins. And so the combination of the fact that it can be moved anywhere in the world where it's best done, and that you need to do it scale and global, and the ideas move around very fast. They're just ones and zeros moving at the end of fat data pipes around the world. You have to do things big. And Canada, on the scale, I mean, we're a big country physically, but we're not a big country from a population standpoint. We're not a big country in the number of engineers we have in these sort of things. So it's a real fallacy to me to think that any one Canadian company can go it alone and make a go of it, because the largest Canadian companies haven't been able to do that. We work with RIM. Celestica now, by default, has become the second largest Canadian-owned kind of technology company, and a lot of others have kind of fallen back to make that happen. So it's been proven that none of the Canadian companies can do it, but I came from IBM, and that's one of the largest players, and they don't do everything themselves. So the idea that we can do it as a small subscale country, can do it all ourselves, it seems to me to be something that's just proven to be a recipe for failure. So we need to marshal together all the capabilities that we have in this country and have them work together, figuratively and literally. Maybe we have to have centers of excellence where they actually converge, real centers of excellence, not just the concepts of a real estate deal where we put other things around it, but something where the people who are actually involved in the various stage of creating a scale product can actually get together. And at the very least, start to create a dialogue of people who actually say, hey, electronic supply chain is important. I know it's a bizarre, boring topic, but if we don't get it right, it's not just about PCs, laptops, and cell phones. Frankly, all of the things that the country is pinning its growth hopes on, clean tech, aerospace, advanced electronics in automotive and those sort of things, all of those things rely upon electronics now. And so if we're going to have scale industries in these leading areas that are going to grow to create enough jobs to offset the fact that our financial industry may not have shed some jobs, or real estate industry, or mining has shed some jobs, or automotive industry, if we're going to create the kind of scale jobs in those sort of things, we better start getting this stuff right. And we better have some electronics, because you can talk about Innovation Nation all you want, but if you can't drive the good ideas that were coming out of here and turn them into products, which then turn into scale companies, we don't have a hope of actually making it happen on a large enough scale to turn the tide for Canada.
Mike, thank you very much. Mike Andrade, Senior Vice President, Celestica, obviously passionate about innovation and passionate about creating improvements for Canada as we go forward. Thank you again.